What do you need to know in order to learn jazz? Is a question that I'm frequently asked by students that are thinking about taking lessons, people at gigs. It's a common question and one that I hope to demystify a bit in today's video. Okay, so jazz is one of those genres that I think maybe has kind of a bit of a stigma attached to it. It's obviously something that you can study at the conservatoire and something that takes a lot of dedication and practice to master. So that I think initially might seem quite intimidating to just a hobby guitar player. So here are some things which I think that if you know will help you out on your jazz guitar journey. Okay, so the first thing that you really need more than anything, these lists are usually not in any kind of order, but this one is the most important, and it is commitment and dedication. Okay, like I was just saying, jazz is not easy, but if you are committed and dedicated and you really want to do it, then it can happen. You need to be able to commit to practicing really for at least an hour every single day would be the bare minimum, and you have to give it a few months. Unfortunately, it's not something that can happen just by getting a lucky pat on the back. It really is a dedication. So beyond all the other things I'm going to talk about, commitment is the most important. Commitment and dedication to it, really. It's not something that you can just stick at for a week to really see the bigger picture of how it works. And you're probably not going to feel too confident about your jazz skills until you can play a few standards, until you can comp most chord progressions. Okay, so that is the first thing, commitment and dedication. Okay, so on with a few technical things that are also going to help you when learning jazz. Well, I personally think that you don't have to necessarily be like a professional really in order to do it. Of course, like I've just said, you've got to have commitment, dedication, but you have to have a reasonable level of technique, or else things are just going to be a bit too difficult. Okay, so the first technique thing that I want to talk about, I guess it's the second point on the list of the first technique thing, is knowing your bar chords in all 12 keys. Okay, that's kind of like before you learn about major 7, minor 7, dominant 7, and minor 7 flat 5 chords, we had these classic things called bar chords. Okay, so you've got to know those in all 12 keys really, and that also means knowing the names on the bottom two strings. So really, if you came to me for a lesson and you were hesitant, and if I said, can you play F sharp minor in two different locations, and you were hesitant to locate them, then obviously you're going to be struggling when it comes to A flat minor 7, flat 5. Okay, so you really want prompt answers and knowledge of bar chords. Okay, that would be the first technical thing. Now the second technical thing kind of stems on from that, and I've just already said it, and that is the notes on the bottom two strings, especially to begin with. Ideally all 6 strings as over a course of time, but to begin with, if you know the note names on the bottom 2 strings, that's enough, because when you eventually learn these chords, the major 7 chords, minor 7, dominant 7, minor 7 flat 5, they're kind of the beginner jazz guitar chords. Then if you know the names on those, then you can kind of navigate those chords and you can come through a few standards, and then learning the notes on all 6 strings can be part of your practice routine when you get going. By the way, guys, if you're looking for a dedicated study of beginner jazz guitar chords, then please check out my beginner jazz guitar chords ebook. I've got a link to it below. It's a huge PDF ebook with downloadable MP3 examples, etudes. It's an ebook you've got to have if you're serious about learning jazz guitar chords. The link is below. Go and check it out, you won't be disappointed. Okay, so that is the second point, notes on the bottom strings. The first was bar chords. Let's move on to a few more scaly things. Okay, now I think that another misconception in a way about jazz is that you've got to know a ton of scales. You've got to know all the modes of the major scale, melodic minor scale, harmonic minor scale, a lot of scales, a lot of modes. When really that is a bit of a, what's the word, like, well, yeah, a misconception really. You don't have to know that many to really get going with improvising at all. But if you can clearly and cleanly play your kind of basic scales, certainly your classic A minor pentatonic, if you can fire up and down the neck in that, that's going to serve you well. And your other basic scales, you know, your 2 octave major scale, if you can play that up and down with the root on the 6th string, maybe with the root on the 5th string as well, that's going to put you in, you know, good stead. Those things, natural minor scale, that's going to get you going in the right direction too. Okay, so your basic scales and making sure you've got a really clear 2-note, 8th note feel, you know, not at a ridiculous tempo, but certainly 140, 50 beats per minute. If you're, say if I take the major scale, I can play it. If you can play up and down it like that, that's great. If you can play it faster, even better. You know, but that's kind of the bare minimum when it comes to scales, really, that's going to help you. Another thing that's on the list is some basic reading. Okay, I've just released another video about the importance of reading music and 5 benefits as to why you should do it. Now, what do I mean by reading? Well, let me just start by saying I'm not an expert professional sight reader. That's definitely not something that, you know, I'm going to sit here and say that I'm comfortable at doing, but I can read something like a lead sheet, okay? So that is useful. But really, you can do that alongside learning jazz. Certainly working through those method books and developing your reading skills so you can work up to read something like a lead sheet or a transcription is something you can do. But reading and knowing about your basic rhythms, quarter notes, 8th notes, triplets, syncopation, these are all really good rudimentary exercises that are going to make learning jazz a whole lot easier as well. Okay, so basic reading is that point. The next point is having some ear skills. Okay, some ear skills, and that's another thing that, as you know, I am big on transcription and the importance of doing that. But you know, at the same time, when you begin jazz, you don't have to be an expert transcriber. If you can't transcribe a solo, or you find it too difficult to begin with, a proper jazz solo, then you know that's not too uncommon. But certainly, what's going to make that easier, if you've already transcribed, it could be a blues solo, a rock solo. You know, having a bit of an ear in that realm of things is certainly going to help you on your way to learning jazz. And you know, being able to work out chord progressions as well. You kind of basic. I sound like a bit like a jazz snob when I call other progressions that are not jazz basic, which is certainly not true by any means. But being able to, you know, transcribe a Beatles song or something like that, the chords to a Beatles song from the record would certainly put you in good stead, because if you can hear the difference between major and minor chord progressions and, you know, modulations from a major key to a relative minor, then, you know, jazz has some of those modulations as well. So certainly having some rudimentary ear skills is another skill that's going to aid you when you begin studying jazz guitar. Okay, so the final point really is one that I would think would probably go without saying, but you'd be surprised at how often I hear these things, and that is a few general intermediate guitar pieces that you can play all the way through. You know, and if you're a blues guitar player, then, or a blues rock guitar player, you know, then you could have things, I don't know, like Sweet Home Chicago that you could play all the way through. You know obviously what a 12-bar blues is. But if you're a general rock player, it doesn't really matter. It could be any, it could be a Guns N' Roses song or an AC/DC song or whatever it may be. But you want to be able to generally, you know, put a lot of this technique into action with a few songs that you can play from memory. And, you know, really, you know, when I teach guitar on Skype, I've had people from all backgrounds. I've had some amazing shred guitar players who can play way faster than I can and want to learn jazz. I've had guys from a classical background who can play beautiful classical music and pieces. You know, these are all things that they can do. So certainly having just a few general pieces that you can play from memory is going to put you in good standing as well. So those are the things that I think are going to help you if you want to learn jazz. Having a few of those things down is going to make that journey a little bit easier. and a bit more digestible, really. What do you think? Do you agree with this list? Do you disagree? Please share your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'd love to hear what you think of this. If you enjoyed the video, please click like. If you like the channel, please click subscribe. Don't forget to click that bell icon. And yeah, I hope you've enjoyed the points from this lesson, and I wish you all the best on your jazz guitar journey. Cheers.